Okay, so let's start with book value per share. So what do you mean by book value per share? Book value per share. Kanus man ni magamit si book value per share. So basically, book value per share is the amount that would be paid on each share assuming the entity is liquidated. So this applicable when the corporation is subject to liquidation. So if diba, so book value per share, this is the value or the amount that the shareholder will receive based on each share owned by the shareholder at the time of liquidation, mo ni ang value sa ilang shares. So yung si liquidation, 'di ba? Liquidation, there's a mag-end na ang operation. So liquidation mag-end na, let's say corporate liquidation. I don't know if niabot na mo dira sa inyong advance accounting, but mana siya corporate liquidation. So book value per share is applicable during liquidation. So if mag-close na ang corporation, mo ni ang value of each share na pwede ihatag sa shareholders by the corporation. Okay, so and this is also the amount available to shareholder, that is exactly the amount reported as shareholders equity. So basically this we are talking here the total shareholders equity, so divide by the shares, outstanding shares, so that is the book value per share. So basically the formula of book value per share is total shareholders equity divide by the outstanding shares. So this is the basic formula. If the corporation only owns or issued ordinary shares or common shares. But how about if napod sila preference shares? So atong bungkagon ang formula. So let's compute the book value per share based on the shares of the corporation. Let's say book value per share, total preference shares na shareholders equity, then divide by the outstanding shares na preference shares. So outstanding preference shares. So that's how we compute. So mag-compute ta og book value per share per share. So kung preference share pila yang book value per share, then ordinary share pila yang book value per share. So the formula same lang, shareholders equity divide outstanding shares, but based on the specific type of shares. So preference and ordinary shareholders equity. So ordinary shares. So basically this is the formula. This is the comprehensive formula to compute the book value per share, because there are a lot of items that you need to consider in computing book value per share, especially if you have two shares. We have preference shares and ordinary shares. So book value per share comprehensive formula. So if gihatag tanan information, so pwede na to ma-fill inan ang table. Okay, so before let's have a discussion per item here. So this is the formula. So first you have the excess over par value, you have the preference share, you have the ordinary shares. Preference share pwede siya daghan because 'di ba pwede na we have different preference shares as to dividends, like 12% lang, 14% ang iyang percentage as to dividends, 12%. So pwede daghan imong preference shares. But since ordinary common, so isa ra gyud na siya. Then excess par value, what do you mean by excess par value? Diba, ahagi ka ng amount from your excess over par. So, di ba literal, excess over par. So, therefore, this is the amount, total shareholders equity minus the par value of your preference shares and ordinary shares. So, excess over par, this refers to your share premium, retained earnings, pwede na revaluation surplus, and other items on your total shareholders equity except the par value of your preference shares and ordinary share. So, mo na ang excess par value. So, atong goal dire, i-allocate nato ang excess over par to compute the shareholders' equity of each shares, preference and ordinary shares. So again, this is the amount of your excess of over par, or the total items in your shareholders' equity less the par value of the preference shares and ordinary share. Okay. Normally, it includes your share premium, retained earnings, and your revaluation surplus, or if there are any other items under shareholders' equity that is not part of your par value or stated value, then that is part of your excess over par amount. So, kani balances. This one, preference share, this is the balance of your preference share at par value. That is the amount of your preference share at par value. And this one is the amount of your ordinary share at par value. Okay, so next item, you have the liquidation value. What do you mean by liquidation value? Since book value per share is computed at the time of liquidation, in case mag-liquidate ang company, so di ba liquidation value, this is the value that is only available for the preference shareholders. Okay, so since preference shares siya, so di ba na-preference ang mga shareholders by owning the preference shares. So liquidation value, this is the value na ihatag sa preference shareholders upon liquidation. Normally, this liquidation value is above par value. So let's say kung 100 ang par value sa imong preference share, normally the liquidation value is above 100. Let's say 105, 120, 115, 110. How do we compute the liquidation value? Okay, how do we compute the liquidation value? So the liquidation value is computed as number of preference shares times the excess of liquidation value over par. So excess of liquidation value over par. Let's say you have 10,000 preference shares. Let's say, for example, you have 10,000 preference shares, outstanding preference shares, tapos ang liquidation value, par 100, then nasa liquidation value of 150. To compute the liquidation value, so just multiply the number of shares, then the excess of liquidation value over par. So there's an excess of 50 pesos, then 10,000 preference shares times 50. That's, tama ba? 500,000? Palabantag calcio. 10,000 times 50. Okay, let's say 500,000. Therefore, this is the liquidation value that you need to deduct on the excess over par. Okay, so that's the liquidation value. So, morning amount dire. So, dili ang whole amount ha. Excess lang over par ang atong i-account. Then, syempre, liquidation value is only available to your preference shares. So, imo sang i-add dito kang preference share nga column. So, add siya to compute the shareholders' equity for preference. Next item is we have preference dividend. Okay, you see preference dividend. Since preference shares siya, so di ba in distributing the dividends, say unhatagan, di ba? Naasay preference as to the dividend. So when you say preference or preference dividend, magdepende pod siya because we have two types of preference for preference shareholders. So you have or preference shares. So pwede na atay preference as to asset and preference as to dividends. So natay preference as to asset preference as to assets and preference as to dividend. So your preference shareholders, na sila'y two preferences like option. So first is preference as to assets and preference as to dividends. So when you say preference as to assets, na sila'y preference in case mag-liquidate as to the assets of the company. So unsa ilang ma-receive unsa ang ma-receive ni preference shareholders if preference as to asset ang ilang gipili or naa sila preference as to asset. So the preference shareholder will receive the liquidation value. Okay, the whole amount of liquidation value, di ba? Let's say 150, the 150 plus dividend in arrears. What do you mean by dividend in arrears? So these are dividends that were not declared or that were not paid on the previous years. Ba? In arrears, diba? In arrears, diba? Kung saan ko pa na ay balanse from previous month. So dividend in arrears, these are dividends that were not declared or paid during the previous years. So wala sila na-declare, wala nagbayad og dividend. So if naay preference as to assets ang atong mga preference shareholders, so they are eligible to receive the liquidation value plus dividend in arrears. So say dividend in arrears tanan period na walay gi-declare, tanan period nga walay gibayaran nga dividends. Okay. So the good thing about preference as to asset, the preference shareholders will also still will receive dividends even na loss. Diba? Ingon ta, dili ta pwede mo distribute og dividends if nagka-loss ang company. Ang corporation, di ba? Bawal mag-distribute og dividends if negative, deficit. But in the case of preference as to asset, even nagka-loss ang company, even deficit siya, the preference shareholder still eligible for the dividend in arrears. So makadawat gyapon sila og dividend in arrears. Okay, that's the good thing if the preference is as to asset. Second preference is preference as to dividends. Kani, di ba, only limited to the dividends. So, preference as to dividends, magdepende siya kung unsa ang gigamit nga term sa imong preference shares. So, manani diri ang upat ka term. Let's say cumulative nga preference share, non-cumulative, like participating, and non-participating preference shares. Okay, what do you mean by cumulative? So if the preference share is cumulative, so the preference shareholder is eligible to receive dividends including the dividend in arrears. So the preference shareholder will receive dividend in arrears. So kung kumiyentag dividend in arrears, that includes the current year na dividend for declaration. Okay, so since cumulative siya, so if wala nag-declare for or nagbayad for the previous 3 years, on the 4th year, 4 years na ang iyang i-recognize nga preference na dividends to be given to the preference shareholders. Okay, non-cumulative pud siya, the preference shareholder is only eligible for the current dividend, current year. So regardless kung wala nakabayad last 3 years, pero kay non-cumulative man siya, so the preference shareholder is only eligible for the current year dividends. Okay, and say participating. Okay, participating. So because na mga preference shares nga naka-percentage siya mo nang participating. So that refers to participating. So kana mga na-percentage, that's the percentage na pwede siya fully participating nga preference share. Pwede po sa certain percentage nga participating nga preference share. So when you say fully participating, if naay sobra, di ba, naay sobra sa excess over par, so after deducting po sa share ni ordinary share, pwede pa mo participate fully sa balance, sa remaining balance, si preference. So that's why i-allocate based on your preference share and ordinary share. Pero pag dili fully participating, let's say participating up to certain percentage lang siya, so the balance or participating balance, kaulan nato ang difference as to pila na kulang para ma-comply tong percentage na as to pila lang sa pwede mo participate. Okay. So that's participating. Then when you say non-participating, so the balance after deducting the dividends sa imong preference share, tanan balance will go to your ordinary share. So sa ordinary share sa month to. Okay, so sir, what's the difference between preference as to assets, preference as to dividends? Diba kagainaw, you say preference as to assets, even magka-loss ang corporation, the preference shareholder are still eligible to receive dividends in arrears. Tanan. But as to preference as to dividends, pag naay loss, di ba dili ta pwede mo declare og dividend if negative atong retained earnings or nagka-deficit ta. Therefore, biskan pag cumulative siya, wala ibadawat ang imong preference shareholders. Why? Because wala man tay ma-distribute nga dividend because negative siya. Okay, so that's the difference between the two. Preference as to asset, preference as to dividends. Okay, so that's preference dividend. Diba? Kung tanawin ninyo, preference dividend, depende siya kung unsay term niya, naka-cumulative ba, naka-participating ba. Okay, pero the assumption, if the problem is silent, okay, automatic, the preference shares is non-cumulative and non-participating. Not unless gi-state yun sa problem, na nakabutan dito, cumulative, participating, okay, nana siya. So, that's how we compute the preference dividend. So, money ang katong since preference siya, nasa preference as to the distribution of dividends. So, okay, ato sa column ni preference shares. Ordinary dividend. Kanos aman magka-ordinary dividend dire? Nga naay bahin si ordinary share. Sige daw, kanus magkabahin si ordinary, kanus magka-ordinary dividend si ordinary share. Kanus Oy, binabit na yung tao dira. Hala, walang tingog.
Pag non-participating, sir, char lang. Sure.
Kanos ang magka-ordinary dividend pag ay igon non-participating?
Non-participating. Ang participating balance to OS.
Sige, non-participating. How about the others?
Pag na-balance, sir.
Pag na ay balance?
Pag humani mag-deduct sa katong preference dividend if na pa siya excess nga balance, diretso siya sa ordinary dividend.
Sige. Akong question ha, kanus magka-amount dire, ordinary dividend. Kanus sa magka-amount dira. Uban, if maulaw mo unmute kay chat box, gamitan chat box. Sayang ang Zoom, dili magamit ang chat box. Kanus magka-ordinary dividend if answer dire cumulative, participating si preference share. Ha. Ang isa dire participating, ang uban. Patra akong estudyante dire be, kisa to Laino, si Ukat, si Ramira ug Bunghanoy. Ang uban. Yes, preference as to dividend. Wa na gyud mo to baglain. Okay, sige. The correct answer is na I share si ordinary dividend dire if the preference share is participating. If participating. If participating ang answer. Diba? So, na-share si ordinary dividend dire if participating ang imong preference shares. Okay, so pwede siya non-cumulative. Pwede sa non-cumulative as long as participating, bahalag non-cumulative siya. Still nagyapoy share imong ordinary dividend dire. Okay, so kanus magka-ordinary dividend if ang preference share nimo is participating regardless kung cumulative or non-cumulative siya. So why participating? Because ang concept sa participating, kay pag participating ang imong preference share, pwede pa siya na ay bahin sa balance. Diba? Kay kung may kag non-participating, katong tubag ni Dax gaina, pag non-participating, ang mabilin share, diretso tanan sa ordinary share. After ma-minus nimo ang preference dividend. Pag non-participating. But how about if participating ang imong preference share? Diba participating, napasay participation sa balance. So since naasay participation sa balance, si ordinary, i-secure na to daan si ordinary. So mupaksi pud ta og participating sa iya. So diba? So ordinary dividend, how do we compute this amount? Sige daw, how do we compute this amount? How do we compute this ordinary dividend? Since this only applicable if the preference share is participating. Copy lang sa rate sa preference share. Tapos, ahaman i-times ang rate sa preference share. Okay. So, to compute the ordinary dividend, so just copy kung pila ang percentage sa preference share. Let's say kung 12%. So, 12% times the amount ani, kani. Di ba? Pila yung ordinary share capital. Okay, pila yung ordinary share capital. So, times lang the percentage of the preference share. So, kani pong preference dividend, yun sa manipag-compute dire, that's, let's say, 12% times preference share. Depende kung cumulative or non-cumulative. Okay, ito limpyuhan. So again, kani imong preference dividend dire, magdepende ang amount dire if cumulative or non-cumulative. Kani po nimong ordinary dividend dire, naalang ni say amount dire if ang preference share is participating. So naalay amount if participating ang imong preference share. Pwede ba nga daghan kag nakay tulo ka preference share, lahi og percentage? Yes, pwede, di ba? Let's say, tulo ka preference share, 10%, 12%, 14% ka preference share. Okay, what if participating ni sila tanan? What if participating ni si 10, 12, 14%? At what amount ato ibutang diri kang ordinary dividend?
Lower rate, sir. Please, lower.
So, we use the lowest rate, di ba? Kinsay pinakaubos nga rate, mao atong gamiton to compute the ordinary dividend. Let's say 10% times your ordinary share capital, that is the ordinary dividend. Another illustration, what if you have 3 preference share, 10%, 12%, and 14% preference share? Si 10% non-participating. Si 12% participating, si 14% participating. Naabay ordinary dividend. Naabay ordinary dividend. Yes or no? Uy. Otro ha. Naitulo ka preference share. 10%, 12%, 14%. Si 10% non-participating. Si 12 participating, si 14% participating. Question, nabatay amount nga ibutang diri sa ordinary dividend? Yes or no? Yes? Wala, sir? Yes? 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 Yes, sir. Okay, so ganito rule nato, naatay ordinary dividend if naay participating nga preference share. Therefore, naaman, di ba? Naay participating, naa si 12%, na si 14%. Therefore, natay amount ibutang nga ordinary dividend. So, naibahin si ordinary share. Question karon, unsa nga percentage atong gamiton? Okay, the lowest or the lower rate, which is 12%. So, 12% times the ordinary share capital mo na itong i-forward dito kang ordinary dividend. Okay. Another case, nakay tulo ka preference share. Si 10% non-participating, si 12% non-participating, si 14% participating. Naabatay ordinary dividend? Yes, naa, yes. Anong naaman? Anong yes? Kay naay at least isa nga participating. So therefore, since na isa nga participating, so 14% times the ordinary share capital. So that is your ordinary dividend. Okay, that is your ordinary dividend. Oh, another case, 10%, 12%, 14%. Tulo ka preference share. Non-participating, non-participating, non-participating. Question, naabay ordinary dividend? Answer is, wala. Kay puro non-participating. So again, naalantay amount sa ordinary dividend if naay at least isa nga preference share nga non-participating. Okay, so I hope clear siya ha. I hope clear siya. Okay, sige. So matong ruling sa participating, if naay tulo or naay more than one preference share, tapos participating ang duha or tulo, then ang atong gamiton na percentage to compute the ordinary dividend is the lowest rate or the lower rate. Okay. So, manata dire, di ba? Ordinary dividend. Therefore, sir, what if wala? Kay non-participating ang tulo, nabatay amount dire, wala tay amount dire, so tanan balance sa imong excess over par, automatic ma-record dito kang ordinary share. Okay, so kaning na dire sa ubos, we only compute kaning naa dire. Di ba? Mo proceed lang ta dire sa computation if naay participating. Again, mo proceed lang ta dire if naay participating nga preference share. Why? Because ang atong gi-divide dire, ang atong gi-allocate dire is kaning amount, kaning balance for participation. 'Di ba? So, since balance for participation. So, pag naay preference share nga participating, that's the time nga mo compute tag ordinary dividend, then we compute the balance for participation, then we allocate it to the preference share in ordinary. Morning gitawag participating si preference share because sa balance mo participate pa siya appeal. That's why nay amount sa iya gyapon, nay amount sa kang preference share. Question, how do we allocate the balance for participation? Okay, pro rata based on
Share capital, sir. Sa
okay, based
shareholding.
on your share capital, 'di ba? Based ani nga amount dire. Your preference share capital and your ordinary share capital. So i-prorate nato siya. So let's say naatay balance, okay, naatay preference share, ordinary share nga 20, 80, tapos natay balance or participation nga 100. So ato silang i-allocate based on this amount. So pili total ani 100 pro rata. So times For preference share, that's times 20 divide 100. For ordinary share, times 80 divide 100. Therefore, nasa 20, nasa 80. So, money ang allocation per share. So, money atong i-compute dire. Okay, so after computing, after prorating or allocating the balance or participation, if, again, ay participating na preference share, then that's the time we can compute the total shareholders equity per share. Diba? This is for your preference share, this is for your ordinary share. Another case, what if nakay tulo 10%, 12%, 14% na preference share. Tapos nakay ordinary share po dire. Ang 10% participating, ang 12% participating, ang 14% participating. Kinsa nato i-allocate ang balance for participation. Diba? We know that the ordinary dividend is computed on the lowest rate. Diba? 10%. So what if napay balance for participation? Nato ni i-allocate. Nato i-allocate. Apil ba tanan ni kanin tulo? Or ang 10% ra kay mora atong gigamit pag times sa ordinary?
Tulo,
Wala
sir.
naman ni sa illustration. Di ba wala ni sa illustration nga tulo ka book gihatag. So what if participating ang tulo ka preference share tapos na ay balance for participation, na to i-allocate si balance for participation sa tulo ka preference share plus the ordinary share. So since ang tanan participating, dapat tapos sila participation sa balance. So ang balance nimo bahinon ni 10%, ni 12%, ni 14% og ni ordinary share. So ang balance sa participation bahinon nila. Sir, unsaon pagbahin? Prorata based on the share capital. Let's say pila ni preference share capital, pila ni i-add lang ninyo, prorate din ta ratio. So fraction, let's say 1 ni 2 4 3. 1/10, 2/10, 4/10. So allocate siya, the balance of participation i-allocate sa tanan. Because participating ang tulo ka preference share. So dapat nagit sila participation sa balance. What if non-participating si 12%? Takin sa i-allocate katong duha ka participating and ordinary share. What if non-participating ni? Sa IR lang, 10% lang ordinary share. What if non-participating tanan, walay bahitabo nga balance or participation? Because again, naalay balance or participation if naay participating. So the balance, after computing the preference dividend, automatic padulong tanan kang ordinary share. Okay, I hope that's clear. Okay, so we can now compute the total shareholders equity per share. So you have preference. Then that's the time we divide the total shareholders equity per share on the outstanding shares per share. Okay, so how do we compute the outstanding shares? Okay, how do you compute the outstanding shares? Diba? So issued sa pay component anak. How do we compute the outstanding shares? Sige daw. How do we compute the outstanding shares? Pila? Unsaon? Issued shares plus the subscribed shares Tapos, okay, minus the treasury shares. That is your outstanding shares. Kasi treatment nato sa subscribe share capital, subscription receivable. How do we treat subscription receivable in computing book value per share? Subscription receivable. Di ba normally in computing the shareholders equity, di ba we deduct the subscription receivable to the subscribed share capital if it is not collectible it is not collectible within 1 year, because if collectible imong receivable within 1 year, it is classified as current asset. Okay, under other non-trade receivables. But if the subscription receivable is collectible beyond 1 year, so it is part of your shareholders equity, diba? To be deducted to your subscribed share capital. But in computing the book value per share, unsay treatment nato kang subscription receivable. Especially in computing the outstanding shares. Okay, the subscription receivable is ignored in computing the outstanding shares. So again, subscription receivable is ignored in computing the outstanding shares. How about the treasury share, di ba? Yes, we deduct the treasury share in computing the outstanding share balance. Unsay treatment nato ani? Unsay assumption nato dire in computing the book value per share? What is our assumption sa atong treasury shares? Unsay assumption nato dire? Sinahitabo sa treasury shares nato dire if we compute the book value per share. Okay, the assumption is retirement. We retired the treasury shares in computing the book value per share. So, di ba? So we assume that the treasury shares were retired. So, unsa ganito'y order of priority, if i-retire nato ang treasury shares, aha nato if loss, aha nato first account ang loss. This retirement, this is not reissuance. So this is retirement. So what's the first priority if naay loss, if dako ang difference between the cost of the treasury share at nag-retire ta? Okay, first priority is share premium from the original issuance. Second priority is, what's the second priority? Okay, second priority is share premium from treasury shares. Then the last is retained earnings. This retirement, this is not reissuance, because if reissuance of treasury shares, kanira duha, walay appeal ang number 1. So first priority nimo if reissuance, share premium related to your treasury shares, then if dili enough to absorb the difference, the loss, then you record it to your retained earnings. But if retirement, diba, we have 3 priorities. So first is from the issuance, second is from the share premium from the original issuance, second is share premium treasury shares, then third is retained earnings. Unsa ganito yung entry if we retire treasury shares? What's the entry? Let's say for example, sige, what's the entry? Let's say for example, naani tanan. Debit unsay entry pag mag-retire tag treasury shares?
Ordinary share capital.
Debit.
Ordinary share capital, sir.
Let's just use share capital lang. Okay, depende man kung preference or ordinary. So debit, share capital atong gamiton. Tapos,
Credit treasury shares.
credit treasury shares because gi-retire nato. Di ba? Pag mag-retire ta, atong gitanggal ang share nga na-issue. Di ba? That's why we debit the share capital account. Okay, so in case there's a loss, let's say, dili kaya i-absorb sa isa or sa ikaduha nga priority, so debit, share premium, original issuance, debit, share premium, treasury shares, and retained earnings. Okay, so let's say for example na kompleto niya tanan, wala na kaya absorb ang loss from the retirement. So ang may tabuan ni, if there is treasury share, because our assumption is retirement, gi-retire ang treasury shares, kung tanaw nimo ang entry, pwede na i-effect sa imong share premium and your retained earnings. Diba? Pwede na i-effect sa imong share premium or retained earnings. And take note that sa atong table, our excess over par, hani sa gikan, diba? These are the items on your shareholders equity except or excluding your par value or your preference share capital or ordinary share capital. So, di ba, ang kanang excess over par, magikan sa imong share premium, sa imong revaluation surplus, sa imong retained earnings, and dili pa ni adjusted. Di ba? Dili ni adjusted. Why? Because nag-retire ta dire, pwede na ang balance sa imong excess over par will be changed. Why? Because of the retirement of the treasury shares. So, kinahanglan ka mo adjust. So, you need to recompute or to compute the adjusted balance of your excess over par if na ay treasury shares. Depende po sa effect sa treasury shares. So, depende sa effect. Okay, so pantayin ninyo ni. Kay basin pag na ay treasury shares, automatic mo compute. Tapos, kung mali na mo daan dire, diba? Mali na mo daan dire, tapos, okay ra og kaning mali gyapon biskan pag non-participating, since mali daan inyong amount dire, GG na tanan, mali na tanan dito padung sa ubos. So that's why be careful if the treasury share ihatag sa problem. So inyong buhaton ayaw sa mo diretso compute sa excess. Okay, prepare first the adjusting entry or the entry for retirement of the treasury shares, then compute the adjusted balance of your share premium retained earnings because sila ang pwede maapektuhan in the computation or in the retirement of treasury shares. Okay, I hope that's clear. Okay, so di ba mo ni atong computation to compute the outstanding shares. So after we compute the outstanding shares, that's the time we can now compute the book value per share. So nana din tayo book value per share. So shareholders equity per share divided by the outstanding shares per share. So that's the time we can now compute the book value per share. So kaning book value per share, in case mag-liquidate, this is the amount per share na pwede madawat ni preference shareholders. Diba? Based o pila po yung number ka share yung gi-own. Kani po dire kang ordinary share, book value per share kang ordinary share. So this is the amount per share that the ordinary shareholder will receive upon liquidation. Upon liquidation. Okay, so I hope that's clear, ha? Question. Actually, we are done with preference, book value per share. Question. Pangutana about book value per share. Ay pangutana. Clear man nun kayo ang mga illustration sa libro. Diba? So, dire isa-isa gid niya per case niya, like first is non-cumulative, non-participating, second na cumulative, non-participating. Sunod na ay cumulative, non-participating, na ay cumulative na fully participating. Okay, so any question clarifications? Sir, kadto sa problem 18-2 letter B, sir. Paki-explain ato na scenario. O, kung mo nag-submit, di ba? 18-2 letter B. Cumulative and fully participating after ordinary share receives 15%. So, fully participating siya after ordinary share receives 15%. Ang kaninga case is, instead nga 12% ang 12% ang ordinary dividend nimo, 15% ang imong gamiton. So, kumbaga, ihatag sa tanan 15% kang ordinary, diba? Nag-compute na kag preference dividend, tapos ang giingon man sa problem is 15% ma-fully participating lang siya pag 15% mahatag na kang ordinary. So ihatag sa ang 15% kang ordinary, asa din ninyo bahinon ang balance for participation. So based on their share capital. Okay, lahi yung pagka-state, di ba? So cumulative lahi ang pagka-state sa problem dire sa letter B kay cumulative and fully participating after ordinary share receives 15%. Tapos ang letter C, cumulative and participating up to 16%. So si preference share diri taman lang 16% yung participation. Since 12% siya, sa balance 4% na lang iya ato. Bagay na siya. Okay, other questions? So again, difference sa preference as to asset, preference as to dividends is pag-compute sa dividend, preference dividend, especially if na arrears, because if preference as to assets, preference shareholders are eligible for the liquidation value plus the dividend in arrears. Even nagka-loss, the dividend in arrears are still fully payable to the preference shareholders. Pero kung preference as to dividends lang tapos nagka-loss, biskan pag 5 years wala naghatag og dividends, wala nagbayad, but for the current year nagka-loss, wala gyapoy ma-distribute nga dividend to the preference shareholders if preference as to dividends. Other questions, clarifications? Naawala. So, nasabtan? Nasabtan ba or wala? Uy, naapa mo? Sabtan, sir. So, isa rin nakasabot. Ang uban, duha. Pila ta ka book dire? 50. Duha rin nakasabot. Duha ra gyud di ay. Ang uban. Tulo. Tulo ra akong estudyante dire.
Yes na lang, sir.
Yes na lang. Ganun na lang man. Wa, nakasubay sir tungod sa connection. Okay, yes sir. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sige. 5 ra ng estudyante dire, no? Okay, sige. At least naaga po yung mga napulo. Okay, padayon ta. So, 12 na di ay. Sige, let's have an illustration. Okay, let's answer this problem. Book value per share. Okay, you can also compute, you can chat in the chat box your answer. So Retro Company provided the following data at year end. So the question is, what is the book value per ordinary share? So aside from the ordinary share, let's also compute pila ang kang preference para duha natong iguan nga problem. Okay. So we have two preference shares. You have 12% and 14%. The 12% preference share is cumulative and participating. So your 12% is cumulative plus participating. The 14% preference share is non-cumulative and participating. So this is non-cumulative plus participating. Unsa gani madawat ni preference share nga cumulative? Di ba? Eligible for arrears, di ba? So appeal arrears ana. So dividends are in arrears for 3 years. So dividends are in arrears for 3 years. So if inani ang problem, ang assumption nato ani, di ba, pag may tag dividends in arrears, that includes the current year. Di ba, current year nga dividends. Therefore, the 3 years, so 2 years day wala nagbayad plus the current year. So dividends in arrears for 3 years. Okay, di ba mo nag-iingon sa assumptions diri sa libro na dividend in arrears usually include current dividends. So therefore, the 3 years it's included na ang atong current year ana. So we have two preference shares, we have 12%, 14% plus the ordinary share. So let's have the table. Diba excess over par. We have 12%, 14%, and your ordinary share. Okay. Balances. Pilay balance mong excess over par.
3,740.
Isbog na to kay uot kay. Excess over par. You have 12% preference share, 14% preference share. So balances, excess over par. So excess over par, diba mo ni retained earnings plus the share premium. Pila na?
3,740
Okay, that's
million.
240 plus 1.5. That's 3,740. 3,740,000. You have the preference share nga 12%. That's 2 million. 14%, that's 3 million. And your ordinary share is 1,500,000. So ito yung next ani, balances. After ani, your preference dividend. So you have two preference shares, diba? 12% and 14%. So based on the given, you have the 12% is cumulative. So therefore, appeal ang arrears, diba? So 3 years atong i-recognize nga preference share kang 12%. Kang 14%, since non-cumulative siya, so eligible lang sila for the current year. Okay, so preference dividend, how do we compute for the 12%? Bounce on pag-compute ang preference dividend, ani?
2 million times 12% times 3.
Okay, so that's 12% times
2 million.
2 million times 3 years because diba cumulative siya, so included ang arrears niya. So that's 0.12 times 2 million times 3, that's 720,000. That's for your 12% preference share. Next is how about sa 14%? So since non-cumulative, so 14% times 3 million lang. current year lang. So 0.14 times 3 million, that's 420,000. That's 420,000. Nabatay ordinary dividend?
Yes, sir.
Yes. How, 'di ba? Naaba wala?
Na
Why?
may participating.
Because na ay participating dividend. So therefore ordinary dividend. Question karon pila?
Lowest rate na 12% times ordinary share capital.
Okay, since we have two participating preference shares, 12% and 14%, sa atong gamiton, di ba, lower rate or the lowest rate. Therefore, 12% atong gamiton. So that's 12% times your ordinary share nga 1,500,000. That's okay, 0.12 times 1,500,000, that's 180,000. 180,000 padulong kang naabatay balance for participation. Okay, yes, we have balance for sorry, dapat 5 million din ko ano.
Ang
Ang
ordinary share.
ordinary, 5 million din dapat ni. So that's be 5 million times 12%. So 5 million dapat ni. So 0.12 times 5 million, 600,000. So since participating, so naatay balance subject for participation. So pila man ni
2 million.
That's 3,740 minus 720 minus 420 minus 600. So that's 2 million. We have balance or participation of 2 million. Question, kinsa nato ni allocate?
Sa ila tulo.
Okay, sa ila tulo na to i-allocate. Why? Because participating ang duha ka preferences. Okay, therefore 2 million, we allocate it based on their share capital. So let's say kang 12%,
Pero
that's
pwede.
diretso na lang na to ha. Kabalo na mo kay para kaana. Sige, so 2 million dili na lang sa taas. So pili total ani 10 million, so that's 20%, 30%, 50%. I hope na-gets niyo ha ang allocation na. So that's 2 million times 20%, so dili na lang din nato ikuan. 12%, so that's 2M times 2 million divide 10 million. So that's times 2 divide, that's 400,000. Kang 14%, that's 3 million. Sorry, that's 2 million times 2 million lagi ni. 2 million times 3 million divide 10 million. That's 2 times 0.30. So that's 600,000. Then kang ordinary share, that's 2 million times 5M divide 10 million. So that's 1 million. Okay, this time we can now compute your shareholders equity. Allocate na nato. So kang 12% pila na iyang C? 2 million plus 720 plus 400, that's 3,120. Kang 14%, that's 3 million plus 420 plus 600, that's 4,020,000. Kang ordinary share, that's 5 million plus 600 plus 1 million, that's 6 million. 600. Then divide by the outstanding shares. Okay, outstanding share. Pila outstanding share ni 12%.
20,000.
So wala man tayo changes, di ba? So 20,000, 10,000, and 50,000. 20, 10, and 50. Therefore, that's 3,120 divide 20. That's 156. Book value per share. 4,020 divide 10. Then 6,600,000 divide 50. That's 132. Na bang answer? Okay, answer is letter A. Because ordinary iyang question. So, pero if ang question, preferences, so kinsa nga preferences? So, 156 kang 12%, 402 kang 14%. Okay, dako-dako gid sila, di ba? Because naman sila preference. Di ba? Una sila tagan sa dividends. Tapos participating pag yun. So, di ba, lugi yun kayo ang mga ordinary shares because participating ang duha ka preference dividend. So, sa balance, napagid sila participation ato. Okay, so money ang posible madawat per share sa mga shareholders upon liquidation. So, upon liquidation. Okay, questions, clarifications? Wala. Klaro ra ba ang illustration? Sabtan ra ha? Okay, sige. Masabtan ra ha? Sige daw, bit. Type 1 kung nakasabot. Kapoy basig storya dire. 2. Unsa man ang 2 grant? 1. Just 1 ramday pa type no. Ayun lang yes sir kay taas ang yes sir. 1. Oh, sige, daghan ako sudzanti karon. Yung ba, pilan di mga 20 na. Oh, bantay niya ginang 1 ha. Sige, 1. Nasabtan sir kay 1. Okay. Sige. Napaday mo dira no, napaday mo dira. Sige, padayon ta. Another illustration for book value per share before we proceed with earnings per share. Okay, kani ang question niya dire. So nag-operate for 5 years, pero ang let's kansa ang question niya. So if the maximum amount available for dividend on December 31, 2018 is declared unpaid, what amount should be distributed to? So napo ni duha ka preference share dire, 12% preference share, 10%, and your ordinary shareholders. Hiingon dire maximum amount of dividend. Diba? Maximum amount of dividend. Agi magikan atong dividend sa atong retained earnings, di ba? So if naatay retained earnings, pwede tang mag-distribute og dividends. Let's read the problem. Tan Company reported the following balances on December 31, 2018. So, money balance sa iyang statement of financial position. So, nasa 12% non-participating, non-cumulative. So, non-cumulative plus non-participating, iyang 12%. Par value, 110,000 shares. Second is nasa 10% fully participating plus cumulative, then 2,500,000 ang total. So, cumulative plus participating. Then, ordinary share capital nga 7,500,000. The entity plans to declare cash dividends. It has not paid a cash or a stock dividend before. So, karon pa sila nag-decide nga mag-declare og dividends. Diba? The entity plans to declare cash dividend for the year 2018. tapos it has not paid a cash or stock dividend, therefore wala naka-declare, or siguro naka-declare pero wala nabayaran, diba? It has not paid. Then there has been no change in the capital balances since the entity started operation 5 years ago. Grabe, wala gyud changes, wala movement sa ilang shareholders equity 5 years ago. So 5 years na sila nag-operate, murag ika-5th year ang 2018. So the entity reported the following net income and loss for the 5 years. So, di ba, 2014 lugi, 2015 lugi, 2016 lugi, makasabot rata nga nung wala nag-declare because lugi sila for the first 3 years. 2017, nagka-income sila 1,750,000 pero wala nag-declare. Siguro, di ba, gi-absorb pa ang lugi atong first 3 years. Or siguro pa nag-decide ang board na magtatag sila og dividends. So, starting on the 5th year, medyo dako-dako na ilang income. That's the time nag-declare sila og dividend, cash dividends. So, question karon, if the maximum amount available for dividend on December 31, 2018 is declared and paid, what amount should be distributed? So, first question na ako sa inyo, 2018 ta diri ha, ang coverage na to. First question, how much is the maximum dividend? Pila ang maximum dividend sa problem? Balance sa RE. Yes, tama. Balance sa retained earnings. Pila ang balance sa retained earnings nimo? Pila? Yes, tama. Because, di ba, we declare dividends based on the retained earnings. So, ang ingon sa problem, if the maximum amount is available for declaration of dividends, pila atong maximum na dividend pwede ma-declare and bayaran to the shareholders. Any idea pila ang maximum?
Taman sa unappropriated RE at di man makalimutan.
Taman sa unappropriated, yes. Since silent ang problem so your retained earnings is unappropriated sila tanan. So, na-answer din 5 million. Ham nagikan ang 5 million. Sige daw, nagikan ang 5 million. Oh, Dave, nganong 5 million, Dave? Hamang ka na 5 years operation, sir. Anong 5 years operations man na 2018 raman ta? Sige daw. Oy.
Inet, sir, ang loss og income
Anong inet man?
for 5 years.
Ngano man?
Bet lang ni Dax.
Total income year 17 and 18 minus total loss 14, 15, 16, sir. Manang 5M. Manang 5M. Question, nganong gi-appeal man ninyo ang 14, 15, 16, 17? 'Di ba ang question is only 2018?
Maka-affect dito sa retained earnings, sir.
Maka-affect sa retained earnings? Ano man? Anong
Deficit
maka-affect
man.
man siya sa retained earnings? Kay? Oy! Ganun maka-affect man sa retained earnings?
Kaya ang computation sir kay retained earnings balance plus net income or loss.
Okay, that's correct, di ba? Retained earning a real account. Therefore, starting 2014 negative. So pila na negative ana? 1.5 debit, di ba? Pag abot og 2015, negative na pod. 1 million. Pag abot og 2016, di ba mo na yung balance? Negative 500, dili ang balance, ang iyang loss. So therefore, ma-forward man siya, di ba? Because real account, so the ending balances will be forwarded on the next period. So 2014 year 1, mo iyang balance na forward sa year 2, tapos na napoy loss nga 1 million, na forward na pod sa year 3 na napoy loss 500,000. Paabot og year 4 nagka 1,750 credit because nagka-income. Paabot og 2018 na imong 6,250. Therefore, at the end of year 5, the balance of your retained earnings is credit 5 million. Diba? So, because ang atong basis sa pag-declare og dividend is ang balance sa retained earnings. Therefore, starting 2014, apil na to, counted na to sa balance sa retained earnings. Dili man sa nominal account nga i-zero out nimo, di ba? So, man mo na gi-close. So, i-forward nimo ang balance niya. So, every year nagkadugang ang loss, nagka-increase ang deficit niya up to year 3, paabot og year 4 na nakawan gamay because nagka-positive siya 2018. Therefore, ang bilin sa mo retained earnings of 2018 5 million. Since maximum dividend, the assumption is if the maximum dividend ang kaya ibayad, therefore 5 million is ang available to distribute as dividend or declaration and paid as dividend. So therefore, your maximum dividend is 5 million. Then mo na imong excess over par. Okay, excess over par. Natay 12% nga preference share, 10% nga preference share, and your ordinary share. So your balances here is 5 million ang excess. Pilain mong 12%, that's 1 million, 2.5, and 7.5. So that's 1 million and 7.5. Okay, kasi ito kani non-cumulative plus non-participating. Kani cumulative plus participating. Tama ba? Okay, sige. Okay, so next, unsa kay sunod ani balances total sa preference dividend. Okay, pilay bahin ni 12%. Since non-cumulative siya, so current year lang atong kaon, so 2018 lang. So that's 1 million times 12%, ora na yang bahin. So 1 million times 0.12, that's 120,000. Okay, how about kang 10%? So that's 2.5 million times 10% times
5 years.
okay, times 5 years because cumulative siya, apil ang R years, di ba? Starting 2014, wala gi-declare, walay bayaray dividends. So, karon nag-decide man sila to declare, so 5 years na ang R years nimo, including the current year. So, times 5 years, so that's 2.5 million times 10% times 5. That's 1,250,000. So, 1 million. Tama ba? Times 0.10 times 5 years. Okay, times 0.10 times 5. Okay, 1,250. Naabay-bahin si ordinary dividend.
Yes, sir.
Naaba? Hawat ang uban. Naabay-bahin si nabay tay ordinary dividend? Naa. Nga naman. Nganong naaman?
Kasi
Kay?
10% kay participating
Okay.
man.
Naay participating, di ba? Mora na atong kinahanglan tan-awon para na ordinary dividend. Since naay participating, pila? 10%, di ba? So 10%, so that's 7,500,000 times 10%. That's 700,000 50,000. That's 750,000. Okay, therefore, natay balance for participation na 5 million minus 120 minus 1,250 minus 750. That's 2,880,000. Question, kakinsa nato ni allocate?
Kung 10% lang o kung ordinary shares, sir.
Okay, di ba we only allocate the 2,880 balance for participating kang 10% lang because siya lang ang participating, di ba? Sa lang ang napoy participation sa balance. Then your ordinary share. So therefore 10%, okay, that's 2,880 times proportion 2,500,000 plus 7,500,000, that's 10 million. Diba? So times 2.5 M divide by 10 M. That's 2,880 times 2.5 divide 10. That's 720,000. So dirita kang 10%. Then kang ordinary pod, that's 2,880 times 7.5 M divide 10 M times 7.5 divide 10. That's 2,160. Okay, 2,160. This is your total shareholders equity. Kang 12%, you have 1 million plus 120, so 1,120,000 lang iya. Kang 10%, that's 2,500,000 plus 1,250 plus 720, that's 470,000 million. Then 7,500,000 plus 750 plus 2,160, that's 10 million. Although dili na ni kinahanglan sa question. Then divide by the outstanding shares. Since no changes, this is 10,000, 25,000 and 75,000. 10, 25, 75. Divide by 10,000 shares, 25,000 shares, and 75,000 shares. That's 120 divide 10. The book value per share for the 12% is 112. Then 4,470 divide 25, that's 178.80. Then 10,410 divide 75, that's 138.80. Okay. Kung tanawon ninyo, dako gid og bahin ang nay participating o cumulative, di ba? So hayahay kayo ang preference shareholder ana. Okay, but the question, pila daw ang i-distribute kang 12%? Sorry. Okay. Nawala. To erase na to. Na-erase gid di ay. Nara. Okay. So ang question is, pila daw ang maximum dividend nga mahatag nato kang 12% preference share, kang 10% o kang ordinary shareholder. Since ang question is pila ang dividend na pwede ma-distribute sa ila, so atong answer kanina dire. Di ba mo man yung dividend? So 120 kang 10%, kang 12%, kani ang kang 10%, plus mo ni ang sa tong ordinary share. So 120 pila man eh. That's 1,250 plus 720. This is 1,970. Kani pila ni 750 plus 2160. This is 2910. So tanaw na to kung naa ba ni. So 120, 1970 and 2910. Okay, mo nang answer. Okay, so that's how you compute if any nga problem. Pero kung ang question, pila ang book value per share, so mo ni answer dire 1112, 178.80, 138.80. Okay, question. Question. Book value per share. Nasabtan ra ba book value per share ha? Sige, type 1 kung nakasabot. Daghan day nakasabot be mga 15/55. Okay, so I hope nasabtan gyud ha. Okay, so wala may pangutana book value per share, mag earnings per share na ta. Wala na gyud ha. Sure na ni. No questions for book value per share. Yes. Oh, yeah, so man, sige. Iagi pa jud line ko an. So man, sige. O kung maulaw mag-unmute with treasury share Ana Teresa. Okay, sige. Mitatag problem diri nga with treasury share. Ngita ta ha. Kanina anak ko nakitaan isa. Sa picturean sa nato ni. Sige, pwede po kay wala tayo illustration day ani. Say may tabo. So kani nga problem Gaza company has authorized share capital of 10,000, 8% cumulative. So cumulative iyang preference share with 100 par value and 100 ordinary shares with 10 par value. So the entity reported the following equity at year-end. So natay preference share capital, ordinary share capital, share premium, and your retained earnings. So atong excess over par ani, di ba kaning duha? So you have 90,000 plus 138,000. This is the unadjusted 228,000. Since treasury ordinary share, our assumption is, di ba, retirement. So, ato ning i-retire 1,000 treasury share at cost of 20,000. So, gani entry nato upon retirement. So, we credit the treasury share. That's at cost. Sige, 20,000. Then, we debit ordinary share because ordinary share siya. Pila na ka share? 1,000 times par niya nga 10 pesos. So that's 1,000 times 10, that's 10,000. So kulang imong debit. Kinsa gid nato first priority. First priority,
Share premium original
okay,
issue.
share premium original issuance. Saan na pag-compute? Sige daw. Automatic ba 10,000? Sige daw, be. Saan ni pag-compute? Share premium original issuance. Yes, tama. Pero pilang amount? Pilay amount, ani? Pilay amount?
900, sir.
Pila?
1,000 nga 900.
900.
1,000 nga
Sige, gansa man
treasury
pag-compute.
1,000 nga treasury shares divided by 100,000 nga ordinary shares katong issued times dahil sa share premium.
Okay, so diba since original 1,000 ra ang imong treasury share nga giri acquire. So that's 1,000 pilang original 100,000. Di ko sure pero murag adjusted na siya. Sige lang, padayon lang nato. So 1,000 divide 100,000, that's pila man ni 1% ra. 1% times pila ang share premium 90,000. Gamay ra kayo na. Sige, try lang nato times 90,000. That's 900. Sige daw ba 900 tapos balance retained earnings. Since wala man tayo share premium from treasury shares. So 20 minus 1,000 minus 10,000 minus 900, that's 9,100. Pero akong question dire, naka 900 naman gyud ang iyang kuan, iyang balance sa ordinary share times 10. Kulang gyapon. Sige. Talay padayon. Kaya di sa mo equal, di ba? Dapat 100,000 times 10 nga par value. Dapat 1 million ni. So, nawala ang 100,000 niya. Sige lang, ipadayon lang nato based atong entry. So, excess par nato 228 minus, di ba, naapektuhan imong share premium, naapektuhan imong retained earnings. So, let's say this minus 10,000. So, pilay balance sa imong par. That's 218,000 excess over par. 218,000 tapos makaplat na ta sa atong table. Isa dili pa sigo. Dili na lang. 500 900. So first, since cumulative ang atong preference share, so dividends on preference share are in arrears for the current year. So therefore, ang arrears lang is for the current year lang. So nakabayad sila for the previous year. So 1 year lang ta. That's 500,000 times 8%. So that's 40. Participating ba siya? Walang giingon. Therefore, mana ni? So balance ani pila ni? 218 minus 40,000. 178. So 170. So this is 500 plus 40, 540. 900 plus 178. That's 1,078,000. Divide by the outstanding shares. So outstanding shares ni preference since walay changes, so that's 10,000. Dili na lang kamo nalay sabot sa solusyon. Tapos kang ordinary share, You have 100,000. Okay, 100,000 tapos natay retire nga 1,000 shares. So that's 100,000 minus 1,000. That's 99,000 shares. Pero ginibungkig. Sige daw, divide na to. That's 540,000 divide 10,000. So 54 ang kang preference share. 1078 divide 99. Wala man ang answer. That's 10,1078,000 divide 99,000. 10.89. Wala ang answer niya. Diri ko nag-question kung anong 900,000 na lang ni. Diba? Supposedly dapat 100,000 ordinary shares times 10 par value. Dapat 1 million siya. So kung 1 million na nabawas 100,000, hagikan ang 100,000 nga decrease.
Murag ko ano ata, sir, 900,000 na.
Mali ni no.
900,000 na iyang balance tapos minusan sa 10,000 atong ganina. So ang outstanding share capital na lang is 890,000. Tapos i-divide na yun siya sa outstanding shares kaya nabit ay shares na 90,000 na minusan na to tong 1,000 nag-retire.
So
So
89.
89,000 so 890 divide 89 so 12 pesos ata.
890. Bali diretso na siya sa
katong 900 minus 10, sir. Kining 900,000 minus 10 ganina tong atong gikuan na OS kini OS 10,000.
okay. So dapat ang imong kaning ordinary share nimo didakan pa nato aning
10,000.
10,000. O tama day. So 900. So ang imong imong shareholders equity kang ordinary share is
890,000 na lang.
900 minus 10. 890 890 plus the 178. Diretso na ni. Divide 99. Unsa to? Miko,
Iko answer, i-add tong 890 na balance sa 178. Tapos i-divide like 89,000 na outstanding shares.
Tama kay ang dili 99 dapat 89 kay kung 900 atong basis dire divide by the 10 no so 90.
Yes, sir.
Sige, try nato. So dapat na pa ni minus. Dapat na pa day 10,000 kay nag debit man tag 10,000. So minus 10,000 kani di ba nag-debit tag ordinary share. So 900 plus 178 minus 10 is 1,068,000 divide by the outstanding shares kung atong basis kani that's 900 divide 100 par divide 100 that's 900,000 divide 100 that's 9,000. So 9,000 shares. Gis raman din ni. So 900 divide 10 man ang par. So that's 90,000 minus the
1,000.
1,000 nga treasury shares. So that's 89,000.
Yes, sir.
Outstanding ordinary shares. Okay, kung naba siya. 89. Naimgawas 12 pesos. Nasa choices iba A. Pero ang question ani nganong na 900,000 ni inyong ordinary share capital. Ano na adjustment na itabo na account kulang ra pod ang 1,000 na 1,000 nga share treasury shares sa 100,000 nga difference. Sige, so since 12 ato lang ning balikan ako ni tan-awon kung unsay solusyon ni ani siguro na ani sa prakwan ra available. Pero for now, sige, let's say 12 siya. Pero ato ra ning ibalikan. Sakto ra gyud nangutan na pag night treasury shares. Kanilang diri lang ang questionable. Nganong nahimo sa 900? Dili pud pareha ang kay kung tan-awon pud mo ang preference share. Okay. Authorized day ang giingon dire. Diba? This is authorized share capital. This is not the issued or outstanding share capital. So, mo ni ang authorized for issuance, pero mo ra ni ang na-issue. Okay, sige na nakita na nato. Okay. So, nganong wala sa nibangga because ang kaning nasa taas nga information, okay, I think 12 ang tamang answer ani. Because ang given diri sa taas is authorized share capital. 'Di ba? Authorized. So these are authorized share capital for preference and ordinary. But money ang issued lang. Kani 500, 100. Therefore, kung moingon tag 500,000, mali pud atong preference din na compute, di ba? So 500 divide by 100 nga par value. So ang outstanding preference share nato is only 500,000 divide 100. That's 5,000 ra, dili 10,000. Then atong ordinary share capital, this is the issued shares. Diba? Issued. So divide by the par of 10 pesos. So that's 900. Divide 10.
90,000.
That's 90,000. So tama to itong procedure gaina. We prepare the adjusting entries. Katong kani dire. So tama tong solution gaina nga 900,000 minus the 10,000 plus the 178. Divide by the outstanding shares nga 90,000 ordinary share minus the 1,000 treasury shares. So the answer is letter A, 12 pesos. So dirita na koan because this is authorized. So akong pagbasa gaina, this is the issued and outstanding. So dili siya issued and outstanding. This is the authorized share capital subject for issuance. So mo na ang maximum na pwede nila i-issue. But based on the report, this is the only amounts issued. So therefore, dili ta mag-base kung pila ang outstanding. So 500 and 900. Okay, but if there is treasury shares, so nato to assumption. Diba? Assumption is treasury share is retired. Then that's why we prepare the entries kay basin na effect sa imong share premium and retained earnings. Kay maapekto na tong excess over par nga amount. Okay, so other question. So mato ha, so 12 ang answer ni 12. So dirita diri ko na sayop sa authorized share capital. Question, sige, other questions. Naapa ba? Kuha na ba ang treasury share? So dili mo diretso mo compute sa excess. Pag-prepare sa mong adjust entry sa retirement, kay pwede maapektuhan gyud na siya not unless gi-retire nimo equal imong par value ug ang cost sa treasury share kana wala say effect sa imong excess over par pero nasa effect sa imong outstanding shares o sa imong shareholders equity. Sige, question.
So kibali sir, ang treasury shares tanan ni company i-retire namo para maka-adjust namo.
Yes. Tanan i-retire. Ang assumption is i-retire tanan.
Okay sir, thank you.
I-retire sa tanan. Walay mabili na so i-retire nimo siya. Question, napay question? Napa wala na. Or basin napay gusto pa explain ani nga part sa libro. Sir, giyon sa tong sa journal entry na 900. Sige, balik ta journal entry ha. Okay. Since ang assumption, pag book value per share, the treasury share is assumed to be retired. So, i-retire na to ang treasury share. So, since naatay 1,000 nga treasury share at cost nga 20,000, di ba entry for retirement, sure ta credit tag treasury share at cost 20,000. Since it's a retirement, so mag-debit ta og ordinary share capital account equal to the par value. So, debit kag ordinary share capital anagikan. So, 1,000 times par niya nga 10 pesos, that's 10,000. So, 1,000 times 10, that's 10,000. So, 10,000 ordinary share. Okay. So, since kulangan imong debit, di ba, if naay loss, our first priority is share premium original issuance. Second is share premium from treasury shares. Third is retained earnings. So first priority nato, share premium from original issuance, na ba ni? Yes na ani. Ani siya. So since ang naisura nato nga share is kaning 900,000, pag iso na to sa 900,000, nagka-share premium ta og 90,000. Okay, nagka-share premium ta og 90,000. Pero kani po the problem, ang share premium nimo wala nakabutang kung kang preference or ordinary share. Pero same ra magyapon ang effect because diba kang share premium gyapon sa mo effect. So let's assume that the whole 90,000 is kang ordinary share. Okay, is kang ordinary share. So that's 900,000 90,000. So since ang first priority is share premium from original issuance, pila ra gani imong treasury share nga gi-retire? 1,000. Pero pilay total, pila ko mamalay ako to answer ani. Sa sige, ang total ani kay because diri ta mag-base. Kay gaina atong base amount is 1,000 divide 100,000 man to. Oh, otro na punta. Sige. Gay nangutana. Sige. So 1,000 pila man 90,000 ra ang na-issue, di ba? So dapat divide 90,000. So 1,000 divide 90,000, bungkig siya. So that's 0.0111. Okay, times pila ang share premium, diretso na lang nato. So times share premium nga 90,000. Ito ba isa ha? 900,000 divide 10. So money mong outstanding. Money mong ordinary share. So times 90,000. Pila ni? That's 1,000 treasury share divide 90,000 outstanding ordinary share times maura di gyapon ni kay same effect ra ang sa retained earnings. So 1,000. So 1,000 ang gikan sa share premium from original issuance. Diri sa 900. Diri sa 900 ha, diri sa 900. So dili 900 ang answer ato. Ang correct nga answer ani share premium original issuance is 1,000. Okay. So sayop to entry kayo na 900. Ngano diri man ta nag-base sa 100,000. Since that's the authorized, diba, share capital. Pero ang na-issue lang is only 90,000. Okay, so 1,000. Therefore, retained earnings, although same rang effect gyapon. Retained earnings is 9,000. So this is the correct entry. As to effect sa book value per share, same lang, 12 lang. Pero kung ang pangutana sa inyo, pilay balance sa share premium, adjusted balance sa share premium, so 90,000 minus 1,000. Pilay balance sa retained earnings, adjusted balance, that's 138 minus the 9,000. But the book value per share, per ordinary share, is still the same. Okay, mora magyapon, di ba? 900 minus the 10,000 plus the 178. So, 900 minus 10,000 plus the 178. Lagay na, 900 minus 10 plus 178. That's 1,068,000. Divide by the outstanding shares. You have 90,000 minus 1,000 retired shares. So, that's 89,000. So 1068 divided 89, so that's 12 pesos. Book value per share. Okay na ba to sa entry? Agi ka ng 1,000. So again ha, base mo sa issued shares. Kaya diri man gikan tong share premium nimo upon issuance. So wala na ako nabantayan ning authorized share capital sa taas. So matong na sayop ta sa answer. Okay na, dili 900 ha, dili 900, 1,000 ang tama nga amount kaning 1,000. So dili ni sa gikan 1,000 nga gi-retire divide by the total shares issued 90,000 times share premium from the issuance 90,000. Okay na ba? Katos ng ngutanan. Okay na ba to? Nagtubag ra ba? Layo man na ni tubag. Sige. So, tana okay na no? Okay, sige. Thank you. Wala na ipangutana. Book value per share. So, I guess wala na no? Book value per share. Wala na ipangutana. Kung maulang mo mangutana, pwede ra i-kuan sa ako i-private message dire sa Zoom. Wala na gyud. Okay. Paway sa takadjot para earnings per share na punta. So if wala, let's have a break. 10 minutes. Kaya ba 10 minutes CR break? Kaon ginagmay panihapon. Okay, or inom tubig. Sige, 10 minutes starts now. So break sa ta.